Hello, friends. Welcome to the Jason Nellis Show. I'm Jason Nellis. Today, I had the opportunity to interview my friend Ari Tong, who is a phenomenal influencer over on TikTok. She talks about relationships. She talks about building partnerships to last and answers a lot of questions from folks who are a little down and out on the dating side of things. We touched on a number of topics today, including her love of TikTok, why she leans into that platform specifically, some of the challenges she's experienced with others, and most importantly, what she thinks about growing her audience in the future. You can find Ari on TikTok at Ariana Tong, and I'll, of course, call it out throughout the episode. If you like what you hear today and you want to get more, subscribe, follow, I don't know, whatever feels right to you. After all, we all got to make a living. Anyway, with that, here's my interview with Ari. Enjoy. And welcome to the show, Ari. Good to have you. How are you today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. How are you doing today?
I'm fine. Remember, deep breath, relax. It's all good. I will set up the scene for our audience here today. You and I have worked together on and off for the last couple of years, actually. You joined our team at Facebook, then Meta, on the super product we were working on. You were a phenomenal asset there. You were a huge presence with creators that we worked with. You were incredibly influential in building the product. And now you are your own grown influencer as well. This is very exciting. I guess my first question for you is pretty straightforward. How'd you kick things off?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And,
it is. I'm a really brilliant interviewer.
You really are. In the time that we worked together, really, I have to give you credit because everyone in NPE and our org was like, Jason has this amazing on-stage presence. And so give yourself a little bit of credit. But
only as much credit as Visa will extend me. But go ahead. Sorry.
So I really got my start as a creator when I was the director of social media marketing at Flutter Dating, which is a dating app. And, we had to figure out a way at the time. Our problem was that we needed to figure out marketing because we were paying influencers to do word of mouth kind of. And, we paid them for organic content, but that wasn't really receiving a lot of turnover. So I stepped in and I really started kind of trying to humanize the dating and relationship landscape by talking about a lot of those common problems. And it eventually became not only just marketing, but growing a community and really like interacting with them, humanizing those dating problems. And, that became a really happy accident because I became an influencer through that. Yeah.
So when you found that traction for Flutter, which as I recall, does not exist anymore, correct? That company has gone the way of the dinosaurs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So we can talk as much smack about, I'm kidding. Tell me a little bit about, you're building a brand for a company that is brand spanking new. Nobody knows what it is. You talk about sort of finding this early traction. What specifically resonated with social media users early on? Was it the advice? Was it the app itself? Was it your sparkling personality? Where did you find those early tactics that really helped build momentum for you?
Yeah, so, the short answer is it was really about humanizing pain points. The long answer is when we originally started our marketing content, we were still looking at virality because you're trying to scale as a business, but we found that really led to a lot of low user acquisition. It led to a lot of low viewership and engagement. And so we realized like, this is not working. So after a while, we kind of looked at what our competitors were doing. And what we noticed was that Hinge and, Tinder and Bumble were kind of poking fun at the issues that existed, which is, from a corporate standpoint, you kind of have to do that because there's so many legal barriers when it comes to the kind of content that you can purchase, sorry. And so, topics like ghosting and, making memes out of it were almost kind of insulting to users is what we found as well. And people are going to dating apps to really find love. They're trying to find a relationship. And when you're the product and you're the company that's really poking fun at that, it seems like a slap in the face. So we took a lot of time to really interview our users, but also, tap into those existing pain points. So stuff like relationship and dating conflict, what to do when you feel stuck when you're dating, and giving people answers to a lot of those pain points. For example, conflict resolution when your values don't necessarily align with the person that you're dating, right? So all of these, content ideas that came about were actually influenced by our larger audience over on TikTok. So what we found worked really well was providing tangible and insightful and valuable like solutions to a lot of these dating problems that people were facing. So what really worked, what we found worked was we posted a video about like relationship and dating conflict and, how do you conduct check-ins? Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was going to say to give me a specific example, because I think, we can talk about it sort of at a high level that, we're talking about dating strategies and solutions, but like dating is a very personal, very emotional thing. I still cry when I think about all the terrible dates I went on that were mostly my fault. So give me an example if something resonates for you that you remember from that time.
Yeah. I want to talk about our most viral video, which is about dating and relationship check-ins. So what this video is, it's bi-weekly check-ins where you talk to your partner about the little things. So something like, what is coming up for you in the next couple weeks? What should I be aware of? How often do we want to see each other? Or, was there a moment of miscommunication? What's the frequency of intimacy, right? And the reason why those things really work is because when you're communicating with your partner, it seems kind of silly to talk about those little things, right? You assume that things are going to be normal week after week. But the reality is humans are constantly changing, needs are constantly changing. And so by giving people the more broken down steps and fleshing out those dimensions of communication, that actually really resonated with our audience. And we got like 2.8 million views on that video. And it really just kickstarted this whole idea of humanizing pain points, breaking down those dynamics. And I'm really proud of that video to this day. And so many people still comment on that video. We still get traction on it, which is crazy to think about. And I think it's in the top 10 most watched videos on TikTok globally in terms of dating. So
very cool. Tell me a little bit about sort of what happened after you left and decided to strike out on your own. So, the account, I don't know, did you shut the account down? Is it now your account?
So they actually ended up, because we ended up shutting down the company, but they ended up giving me the account because I had built such a presence with my face on it. It was like they had no choice but to give it to me, kind of. But what's interesting is so many people were like, oh, wow, this is not a dating start. I didn't know that this was a dating app startup. I thought this was like you just giving dating and relationship advice. So when I left Flutter, I still continued to do the same thing, which is where I engage with our community. I go on TikTok Live. I still give dating and relationship advice, but I've also expanded more so to advice about career, advice about life, but also relationships when it comes to your friends, your family, your colleagues, right? Because I think we tend to think of relationships as this like one-dimensional thing, which is romance. And so that has done really well strategically, where I've been able to go on to other companies and kind of share my insights that, let me back up here. So I ended up expanding my content, and that has allowed me to engage more with other people outside of the dating relationship community. It's allowed me to expand my audience, but it's also helped me grow as a creator, because when you're growing as a creator, you get access to a lot more product features on TikTok, but you get a lot more opportunities as well. So from there, even doing the relationship and dating stuff, I've been invited to places like Google to give talks about, my work on Flutter and how love and, dating and relationships, how do they impact generations, right? So that's a really good opportunity that I had as an influencer. But I've also took a lot of my creator experiences as well and brought them to companies like Meta, Google, but also TikTok, and really tried to work with a lot of these companies. So to answer your question, I've really stuck with the whole dating relationship niche, but expanded outside of that, grown my audience, but from a business standpoint, took a lot of those insights and expertise as a creator and brought those to companies to help them develop products as well.
Love that. These days, when I go onto your TikTok account, although, nobody really goes onto a TikTok account, let's be honest. You show up on my For You page very frequently because I make sure to check in on your content.
Oh, thank you.
Well, you're very welcome. It's what keeps me on TikTok, because I'm like 95 years old and I have no idea how to use TikTok. My question really relates to, how do you keep things maybe this is a good relationship question too. How do you keep things spicy? How do you keep them
Oh,
exciting and engaging? And more importantly, how do you think creatively about what you're making for your audience? Because when I think about the daunting task of building strategy for content, for social media, for whatever, I feel like I'm sitting in a blank room with a blank page and a pencil and no idea where to start.
yeah.
So where do you take inspiration from, and how do you keep the engine running, so to speak?
Okay. First of all, I just want to say, for 95 years old, your skin looks great. I need your skincare routine.
It mostly just take care of your hair and the rest takes care of itself, I found, but that's neither here nor there.
I'll have to look into that and I'll report back in like 90 years
Please.
or something.
Yeah.
So, to answer your question, when you start out as a creator, you're really doing the most. And what I mean by that is you're really focused on, utilizing a lot of the tips and tricks that creators talk about, which is using something called Answer the Public, which is like SEO based questions so that you optimize for engagement. Or, a lot of people say the comments in your TikTok comments, right? You can thread videos by responding to comments. But what I've found works and is the most scalable is using stitches. When you are producing content as a creator, it's an extremely manual and iterative process, where you're sitting down, you have to film content, you have to edit it, and then you have to upload it. So extremely it's extremely labor intensive. And so what I found is either utilizing strategies to scale, such as stitches, or even creating a series where you're kind of iterating on the same concept over and over again, but it's a different take every single time. And you kind of see that through Mr. Beast as an influencer, or Logan Paul, for example. But for me, because I'm a smaller creator, I've turned to stitches as a way to kind of create content, because my predominant content in my platform is on TikTok. And when you are developing a strategy to grow, you kind of want to look at that platform and look at that algorithm and think, okay, what are they really optimizing for? What are they really pushing? So right now, TikTok is really pushing live. So a lot of creators will hop on live as well. And you'll see tons of ads for TikTok Live. But a year ago, they were pushing more, like native product features like duets and stitches. And that has worked really well because you're increasing organic content and you're also increasing content that's being created on the platform as well. So when I realized this, I started creating stitches, and some of my most viewed videos are stitches. And it's such an easy way to create content where you're responding to other people. You're getting inspiration from other people as well, because a stitch is responding to other people's content and giving your own take. And I think this works really well for me because I give a lot of advice, because people typically have like dilemmas, or you're watching real life unfold before your eyes in a really short bite-sized piece of content. And so that has worked really well for me. But another avenue that I like to go is TikTok Live. I think TikTok Live is a great way to grow, but it's also a really great way to engage with your community. I love that. And you can also download TikTok Lives and batch it and re-upload it. So that has pretty much been the way that I've been growing and what I really love. I'm extremely bullish on it. I think that TikTok Live and TikTok Stitches are an amazing asset to the platform, but I can't speak to something like Instagram or YouTube. But I know that this for a fact works when it comes to growth and engaging with your community.
Well, you bring up a really good point. Full disclosure, we used to work at Meta. We used to work at Meta together. And more importantly, we used to work on a product that, while adjacent to Facebook and Instagram, we didn't have any impact on. We had no real insider knowledge on. But after that experience, do you feel like, you've leaned very heavily into TikTok? Have you tried experimenting on Instagram and YouTube Shorts? And how has that been for you?
To answer your question, I have experimented on YouTube and Instagram, more specifically with short form content. So, in 2021, I think YouTube rolled out YouTube Shorts in beta on India, and everyone was talking about it because they're like, you need to get in on this. It's kind of like when Bitcoin first came onto the scene, everyone's like, you need to learn about Bitcoin. And it's like, I still don't understand crypto, but I digress. YouTube Shorts, I've really tried to, use the product and, A/B test different types of content format. And I've had some traction, but I'd say that there's a little bit of frustration because my TikTok content kind of goes over time when it comes to like the parameters when it comes to YouTube Shorts. So let me reiterate that, or let me try to rephrase that so it makes sense. So YouTube has product constraints where you can only upload 30 to 60-second videos, and typically my TikTok videos go over a minute, so I have to edit the content when I upload it to YouTube Shorts. And that, as I said, content creation is an iterative process where it's extremely labor intensive. So having to go and re-edit every single video takes a lot of time. So I kind of was like, I don't really know if this is worth my time. Maybe I should just focus on producing on just TikTok. With Instagram, and I can say this for so many other creators who have told me this, it's really hard to grow on Instagram. And I think it's just because, its network is super saturated. I think there's a problem with the product where the content that you're being sourced on your homepage, or the content that's being serviced on the homepage, is based off of your interests, but also your family and friends, so your existing network. And that kind of makes distribution a little more difficult. And so you're not really focused on niching down, you're really focused on what your network likes. And that makes it hard to really lean into what you want to produce as a creator as well. So I've really just stuck to TikTok the most because I've seen the most traction there. But the downside of that is I also got signed by a manager this year. So he comes in strategically, tells me what I should be really focusing on. And so the downside of working primarily on TikTok is that a lot of the ad money is actually on Instagram and YouTube because there's a lot more ROI, there's a lot more traction for brands in general. So I am kind of hurting myself by not focusing on those things. But yes, I have experimented on it. I was kind of just elaborating more so on what my experience has been.
Ari, one of the things I really love about chatting with you is how brilliant you are. It is very clear to me. No, it's true. Part of what I love about hearing from you is that you've got tactical and strategic and creative and business things going on all at the same time. And that's really awesome. The thing I want to hear most about, though, the thing that's really compelling to me is the artist behind all of that. And so, when we're talking about your creative approach to all these different platforms and, all these constraints, what do you think sort of gives you the most creative oomph when you're thinking about content? Not just answering questions, but what inspires you? What gets you out of bed in the morning and says I want to keep making something on TikTok or any other platform and I want to keep trying?
I think when it comes down to it, it's people. I'm super passionate about, people and relationships. I mean, it's in my content, but ever since I was a little kid, I've wanted to just help people no matter what I'm doing. I had this stint where I wanted to go into politics, and this is when you're really young and you're not super jaded about the world. And so I did 2 internships with the U.S. House of Representatives, and I was really fortunate to be working with a congressman who really does love working with people, and that kind of exposed me to this this passion for leaving the world a better place. Utilizing the resources that you have to leave your environment in a better shape. And unfortunately, when I came out of those internships, I was like, politics is not really about helping people. It's a whole nother ballgame. And so, every time I would go and do work, whether it's, working in finance, because I did a little stint with that, or whether it's at Flutter, or whether it's at Meta as a partnerships lead, what gets me out of bed in the morning is the fact that I am able to hear about someone's pain points. I'm able to take that and bring a solution to them. And when I look back, especially at my experiences at Flutter, it's not the numbers that I really remember because, that's great and it helps my resume. But what I remember the most are these really distinct interactions that I've had with our community. The people that have come to me and been like, your advice has really helped me. It's helped turn my life around, which is crazy to think about because I'm just saying words. But when you get to form those relationships with your community, and I think about so many people, like one girl that I had met, she actually came from a family of Jehovah's Witnesses and she was trying to leave. And so we developed a friendship where she would come to me and talk to me about, the problems that she was facing. And it really humanized people because your TikTok has a beautiful way of capturing the world and experiences that you would never come across, right? So when I had met this girl, we formed this like friendship, and hearing her progression and how she's been able to kind of turn around her life and her situation is so incredible. And I always think about those experiences, and it's really touching, and it really puts a face to the people that you're working with. Because I think in tech, and also just in your job in general, you don't really get to interact with those people unless you're like the front facing, your customer experience, your partnerships. And it can be really easy to forget that. It can be really easy to forget who you're actually serving. And so that's the inspiration behind all of the work that I'm doing. And I've never really lost that drive to help people. And when I was at Flutter, what really resonated with me was the fact that we wanted to change the dating landscape. And I've had so many frustrating experiences. At Super, it was helping creators, monetize. It was helping them engage with their community. And having those experiences and those pain points really helped me fall in love with the product and work that I'm doing. So, to answer all of it, it's really just people and those experiences.
I really appreciate that answer, because I think that aside from the constant conversation we're all having strategically, which really thinks about our audience as being these large groups of, generally speaking, amorphous people for whom we're just constantly striving for their attention, I think you really speak to the heart of the matter, which is that these are people. And in your case, these are people with really challenging problems that you're really focused on helping them more so than you are just getting their attention to try to convert them into somebody who's buying something or somebody who's subscribing to something. And I really appreciate that. And I think your audience response and your follower levels certainly show that. It's disappointing to hear that you haven't been able to find success of that similar nature on other platforms. I wonder if that speaks specifically to TikTok and the way it's built to really encourage those types of content in a way that maybe other platforms are just not as geared towards.
Yeah, I actually would say that TikTok kind of optimizes for the interest graph, and that kind of leans more into like engaging with community, and not engaging with community, but engaging with just the average person. So
tell me a little bit more. Tell me more what you mean about the interest graph specifically and how it compares to other ways of disseminating and consuming information.
Yeah, so the interest graph is essentially where you have a user and the content that's being surfaced on their homepage or their For You page is based off their likes and their interests. And what I mean by that is how a user engages. So, watch time, likes, follows, all of those behaviors, signal to the algorithm or to the platform, oh, this person likes this content. Let's continue to serve content that's somewhat in that nature or within that ecosystem. And there's lots of math involved that enables, that platform to surface that content. Whereas something like Instagram is more so based off of, network effects. It is a social graph, but I think when I think about network effects, it's more so about your friends and family and engaging with that existing network. So those are pretty much the two different, buckets. Does that explain?
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Well, and I think, when we talk about how that compares to something like Facebook, for example, which is, the news feed, which is a combination of your friends, your family, the things you like, maybe some ancillary interests, or even these days, the For You page on what used to be Twitter. I'm still going to call it Twitter, damn it. I don't care what that guy has done to torpedo that platform. I used to love that platform. I think it's interesting to hear how successfully the TikTok algorithm has, sort of elevated the kinds of careers like yours. When you talk to your manager about these kinds of interactions, when you talk to your manager about these kinds of platforms, do they give you a sense of sort of what they see as being new trends, or is it really just on you to really do the work and inform them about where you want to invest your energies?
I think it's 50-50. So my manager's name is Gil, and Gil will send me articles. He'll kind of tell me about the more business strategic insights, such as, ads convert better on YouTube or YouTube Shorts and Instagram. But I think for me, the biggest superpower I have is that real lived experience of being a creator, right? Companies such as Meta and YouTube and TikTok pay creators thousands of dollars to come in and, participate in user research where they want those creator insights because we're the ones who are having those experiences with product. it's an experience that not every single person on earth has, and that's what makes it so unique. So I think Gil's strategic insights really helped me understand what to do, but also having that, interaction with the product in the community and seeing how, changes to the product also impact my engagement metrics and, output. It really comes together all in one, and we make a good team. But I think the danger in just relying on, the strategic insights from the business standpoint and just ads, it really dehumanizes the end user or who you're serving. And I think we can see this in business, and going back to the point of like people and the community is you want to empathize with your audience, and that's what ends up winning at the end of the day. And so I think it's really important to remember, who you're serving, but also you need that quantitative and that qualitative insight to come together to really make a supercharged strategy. And that's what I've seen work at the end of the day.
Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Particularly because when you talk about empathy, I don't, sometimes you hear folks describe empathy as as if it's a foreign concept. As if it's, I mean, you hear it all the time in product management. You hear it all the time in product design that like, we need to have empathy for our users. Like, well, what does that actually mean? And to hear that that's something that sort of drives you in a much more tangible way, I think I really appreciate, and I hope our listeners and viewers do as well. Well, tell me a little bit then about what your future plans are, if you have sort of gone down that path. You're continuing to grow your audience. You have a manager who's helping you to think about sort of the long tail of your career online. Are you positioning yourself for more brand deals? Are you thinking more about how you can interface with other creators on TikTok and other platforms? Strategically, what does 2024 look like for you?
I really would like to continue to work with tech companies and more on the enterprise side, and also eventually build my own product. So to elaborate on that, creators, they have an angle, many of us do, which is to monetize and make money. And as you develop as a creator, you're really focused on turning this into a business. And how creators really rely on monetizing and turning this into a business is brand deals. So you'll hear creators say, I really want to work with X company, but I'm not really focused on the brand deal aspect of it, because I think it's like this never ending process of having to source leads, having to like pitch to companies. Rather, I would like to take a lot of those insights and take that to a business and work on developing a product. Because I think from a business strategy, the enterprise side not only has more money, but, as a creator, I have so many of those insights that I would like to contribute to the wider product landscape and, make a product better and improve the product. And I think that's so valuable. So, and because I'm passionate about people, I want to improve that space as well, whatever space I'm in. So my biggest goal pretty much is to take those experiences and, work with companies to build a better product. But on the other side, I do want to eventually build my own product because, like I said, when you develop a community, you're creating content, you're interacting with the community, that's free user research that companies pay thousands of dollars for. And so it's really insightful. And I've seen it really help us at Meta and our team, but other product teams across, the wider company. It's helped TikTok, it's helped, YouTube, but it also helped us at Flutter develop a product called Flutter Dating Communities where, we're able to identify pain points. We're able to get more insight as well that you wouldn't necessarily see on service level. And so I've seen how powerful working with your community is and what it can do for people. So my ultimate goal is to, continue to work with those companies, but also, develop my product, because I think the brand deal side is, trends come and go. You as a creator, you're going to have, peaks and valleys in throughout your journey. And I think it's a lot more stable to focus on developing your own thing and really focus on developing, a product as well. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but that's pretty much my goal.
Okay. No, so you want to extend the online presence into something that's a little bit more tangible for users to have as a touch point and to be able to actually have more material impact on them. I love that.
Thank you.
All right. Here's a good curveball for you, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
All right. So I'm restarting this podcast. I
Mhm.
had a very tiny audience. I'm looking to figure out strategies for how
Mhm.
I'm going to grow. I'm not going to ask you, what should I do to grow? Because I don't
Mhm.
think that's a real question. I think that's a give me free advice and you should get paid for that. But what I do want to ask
Thank
you
you.
is, as starting out again, essentially,
Mhm.
what are some of the strategies that you would tell me to employ to go learn on my own?
Mhm. Oh, that's a really good question. I've
Yeah, I
had.
thought so. I feel really good about that question.
I'm glad that you feel great about it.
I mean, I feel great about a lot of things, but that question in particular, I'm just curious because, so many times when you talk to influencers, as somebody who's a fan, the thing that you hear most often asked is simply, what can I do to grow? And that's not a good question, but a better way to think about it is, how do I learn how to grow? In the same way that I'm not really learning calculus when I'm at school, because I'm not going to use calculus in 99.9% of jobs, but I do want to learn how to learn. So what would be your advice to an influencer who's looking to restart their strategy or is starting from zero? How do they learn how to learn at scale?
I think, I'm going to talk more so about the holistic perspective and, like more of the qualitative, but also how to execute. So, when I think about strategically what we started out with at Flutter, but also as a creator, because I've had to start over many times because I'll take breaks, which is also great for your mental health. I highly advise that, because content creation, lots of burnout. But I think, when you're starting out, it's really breaking it down into bite-sized pieces so that you can slowly get into the flow of things, because you are a party of one, like you're a team of one at that point. You're going to have to manage and delegate effectively where you can take on this workload day to day. So many people or growth strategists will say, oh, you need to upload 3 to 5 pieces of content. You don't have to necessarily do that, but I'd say engage with the native product features on that platform. So stitches, for example, are a really great way to start out, and just, because you're getting inspiration from the platform, but you're engaging with the native product features. And typically platforms really like that. So, having a really bite-sized way, an easy way to execute is a great way to like restart, so that you're gathering that rhythm and the momentum, because it's all about momentum. The second thing I would do is, look at the product blogs that a lot of these companies publish. TikTok has something called TikTok Newsroom that shows you a lot of those product updates. Adam Masuri, for example, he constantly posts product updates on Threads, on Instagram Reels, on his page, but also there's tons of blogs. Meta has a developers blog as well. There's so many golden pieces of golden pieces and bite-sized pieces of information that are so amazing in terms of getting you really up to date on what's happening in the product space. So that's in terms of the execution side is just breaking those things down into something manageable, but also, reading about the product landscape and having an understanding. But if you're not producing content too, keep an eye on the whole entire, ecosystem. Follow your favorite creators or people that are in your ecosystem to kind of see what they're doing. And then on the more qualitative side, I think, it's a matter of really falling in love with it, because I think when you're driven by numbers, it can be an extremely emptying experience, because intrinsic there's no intrinsic motivation. And I hate saying motivation as a determining factor to go after something, but there's no intrinsic fire that you have to do something, right? So I think you got to think about what really drives you. And so for me, that's my why, which is people, right? And, having those moments where you're like, wow, this is why I'm doing this, I'm helping people, was the reason why I continued to come back and I continue to keep engaging with my audience. And so, that's one asset of the qualitative piece. And then also taking inspiration from your own community, if you do have a community, and seeing, how are you engaging? How are you bringing people back as well? I think that's great. A great way to like get that inspiration and restart. Another great example is the news and current events. Platforms are surfacing so much content based off of, cultural events. They're based off of, catastrophe. It can be based off of something that's happening in your local community. But taking inspiration from what is happening and in the now is great, and reporting on that and giving your own insights as well. People love to hear hot takes. Reddit also is a really great place to, get news articles from, and, get ideas as well. And, I think those are really great. That's a really great avenue into just finding content to create. So all in all, to say, like, my advice to creators that are trying to start again, look at the qualitative and quantitative in terms of execution. So qualitative being your comments, news articles, interacting with your community, and finding your why. And then on the quantitative side, it's really about breaking it down, making, that execution digestible, easy to reiterate, and so that you're not burning out. And really reading those blogs, like TikTok Newsroom, love that resource. Instagram, even though like people don't really necessarily love tech, Adam Masuri does have some really good insights on his page. And I find a lot of value out of his threads, but also his content on Reels. And, the Meta for Developers blog is also a really great asset because of the product side of things. And the product side of things really informs you about what are they really optimizing for? Are they optimizing for engagement? Are they optimizing for watch time? Are they really trying to push a new product feature? That is a really great way to get an idea and a sense of what they're really focused on.
The thing I pulled from that I really want to make sure I echo for everybody is that there is a constant source of new things happening in the world that you can take inspiration from. And whether it's Reddit or social media itself or current events or lots of other places, that vision that I presented earlier of being alone in a room and trying to sort of conjure ideas doesn't have to be your experience, right? What you're saying here is use what's around you, take the inspiration in, and build a cycle that is less dependent on you manifesting from zero all these creative ideas, and instead taking inspiration from the outside, putting your spin on it and putting it out into the world. Do you ever feel like you really sort of find that nugget of gold and you want to sort of keep chiseling away at it? Have you found one or two of those moments where you're like, oh, this is the thing, and then you've been able to sort of lift things up from there?
Are you talking about just like the content type, or, like what works in terms of trends, or
any of that? I mean, I would say if you have an example of either a piece of content or a trend that you stumbled on that you've been able to sort of grow. We were talking before, somebody who I interviewed some time ago, I think I've referenced him in a couple of episodes now, but Chef Mike Harris from McDonald's used to open all of his stitches with, I'm a former corporate chef from McDonald's, and then would sort of do his thing. And as obnoxious as that was, it provably and demonstrably helped lift his audience because they knew what they were getting from him and they would either swipe away or they would stick around. Have you found, maybe not that specifically, but have you found something in that space that helps you more connect with an audience that's responsive to what you want to talk about?
Yeah, there are two things that I found have worked is, first, it's creating valuable content. And in the relationship and dating space, it's giving people tangible tools, frameworks, and advice. Because when people are looking for, when they have problems, they're like, what do I do? And everyone gives them they'll give them examples or they'll give them personal stories. But inevitably, what people are actually looking for is like, what do I do? Right. And they're looking for a solution that works for them. So when we are at Flutter, what we found is offering that tangible advice and those solutions is so valuable to people because relationships in general are like so nebulous and there's so much gray matter within that space. So, we found that works. So an example of that is, our relationship and dating check-ins, giving them a really definitive example of what to ask during these check-ins and what you should be looking for. Not what the outcome is, but what you need to be looking for within these check-ins. And I think that really helps the end user, understand, okay, I'm looking for X, Y, and Z thing instead of and taking those X, Y, and Z things and applying it to other situations. So it's more of a theoretical aspect, and then they're applying it to the practical. I don't know if that really makes sense, but We found that those tangible examples really work. And on, more so the advice side of things, because I'm more advice based, that is more valuable than just telling people, do this exact thing that I'm doing because it works for me. But the reality is, no, this is also for the end user, and this is what might work for them. Let's try it out and see if it works. So I've seen that really work. And then the other thing that I've seen work that's more iterative is a format. So for me, that's stitches. And it's because it's a really easy iterative piece of content where I can just quickly hit stitch and then start recording. And then I have a piece of content ready to go. And it's right then and there. There's no long drawn out process where you're going into Final Cut. You're looking at your audio and you're examining your audio. You're having to cut down footage because stitches actually don't allow you to cut the footage. So it's all in one take, which is great. And for a person like me who's busy and, has, a job, but also, this is a part-time thing where I'm a creator, that works for me. So I've found that iterative process where it's really easy, it's digestible, there's not a huge barrier to entry is great. And then on the other side, it's giving people valuable, tangible pieces of advice that they can take away and that they can learn from, instead of being like, this is what works for me, but rather giving them the tools so that they can find success in their relationships or within their life, whether it's in their job, or even in their relationships with their friends, their family, and the coworkers.
Love it.
Thank you.
This has been really helpful. I really appreciate all of your feedback. One thing I like to do, and this is going to be a curveball for you, so you take your time if you need it. One of the things I like to do is I like to end each interview with an Ask Me Anything session where you get to ask me anything. One question, anything you've ever wanted to ask me. We've been friends for a while now, so if you got something top of mind, or you can tell me I have nothing to ask you, and you can ask me what color the sky is, and I'll move on, and that's okay.
Oh man, because you're a manager, this is a great question. Let me pick my brain a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, I think because I'm more in the relationship and dating space. And I've also heard you give some fantastic advice, to not only me, but to our wider team about relationships. I'd love to know, what is the best piece of dating and relationship advice, or it doesn't have to be that. It can be about family. It can be about friends. What is the best piece of advice that you would give your son or anybody?
I love that. Thank you. By the way, can I just also say, this is the first time somebody's asked me a real question and not just how do you keep your hair that good? It's very nice. Thank you. My one piece of relationship advice. I was a pretty terrible dater throughout my 20s and early 30s. I was. I had a habit of, dating for a short period of time and sort of moving on. And I think there were times where I wasn't terribly kind about those breakups, and other times where I really tried to be kind, and that's just how it ended. And it wasn't always pretty. I'm very lucky that my wife, she and I have worked really hard at our relationship for a really long time, and we work really hard on our relationship with our son. And the one piece of advice that I always give when somebody asks about our marriage or our relationship is just commit to the work. And that's not to say that it's not hard. It's not to say that you don't have to adjust your own, tactics as experiences develop. But, long-term relationships are a choice between two people over and over again, constantly. And in order to make that choice over and over again, you have to do the hard work of being honest with each other, and also calling each other out when you're not being 100% honest or present. We've had lots of disagreements and even fights about my sometimes habit of couching things in that's just sometimes how it is, as if platitudes solve problems, which, put that on a t-shirt. They don't. So yeah, I mean, my piece of advice would always be, when you find the person you want to do the hard work for, make the real commitment to do the hard work. Doesn't mean the work is always hard, but it is in the long term a marathon, which sometimes also involves sprinting, and just prepare for that. The upside is, if you find your person, there's nothing better. There really isn't. And the things that you can do together, the things that you do together are always better than the things that you do apart. That's my feeling.
That's great. I love that. Yeah. I mean, I've I'm not married, but I've had a few long-term relationships and it's hard. It's hard work and I can't imagine like couples that have been together for decades or years. There's a lot of forgiveness involved. Like, people mess up. People will get on your nerves. Your partner will do really sometimes be mean and you're like that didn't feel great. But I think yeah, it's a lot of work and a lot of forgiveness involved and that's really great advice.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm coming from you. That's high praise. I think that relationships are difficult when they're worth it. And the choice to do the hard work with the other person or other people in your lives, it certainly doesn't limit itself to romantic relationships, but friendships and business relationships and all of that. Sometimes you have to have people in your life who are difficult to work with, and we don't all get the blessing of being able to just let those people fall out of our lives. We have to do hard work with people we may not want to do the hard work with, and making the choice to commit to that and to do the work on your own so that you know that you're living up to your highest good in that way, I think is the only solution that makes any sense for not only any of us individually, but for all of us collectively.
That's beautiful. I love that. That was great advice.
You're very kind.
Yeah.
Well, again, coming from you, then I know I must have hit the mark at least a little bit.
You're too kind.
Ari,
you're blowing me out of the water.
Nah, that's fine. Ari, before we go, let's do a quick shout out. Anything you're working on or you have coming up that you want to shout out to folks, or just you want to call out where they can find you online? Any and all of that is the stage for you.
Yeah, you can find me on TikTok under the handle at Ariana Tong. It's just my full name. And, I'm just here for the vibes. We're 2024 is all about vibes. It's all about having a good time. I think 2023 was really stressful. So if you're looking for some good relationship and dating advice, but also life advice, or just for a good laugh, you can find me on TikTok.
Very cool. Well, thank you again for the time. Really appreciate it. Thank you to all of our viewers and listeners. And we'll catch you all in the next episode. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Jason.